Hey all, here OS Reviews. In this video, we're taking a closer look at the Viaim RecDots. These are a fusion between true wireless buds or headphones, along with having voice recording capabilities. So a digital voice recorder, basically 2-in-1, and also connects to their companion app where you can transcribe the recordings into text, claims to cancel out any background noise using the built-in mics, and also features flash recording with built-in memory that can hold up to 4 hours of recording using just the headphones when you're not connected to your phone or app. They can work independently, allowing you to save and sync things over later when you're ready. All you need to do is swipe them up and then tap on the record key to start. So that is a pretty unique concept if you're working in a business environment, if you're a student or a creative professional that's always trying to create memos, record meetings, capture ideas when inspiration strikes. Now you can do that with just one click. Now these are flagship grade wireless headphones as well. So they have high-res audio wireless certification using LHDC. Now, that is an audio codec which stands for low latency, high definition audio, transmitting more detail wirelessly. This actually is the alternative to other high-res wireless codecs like aptX Adaptive, as well as Sony's LDAC. In fact, at first I thought it was a typo because this might be one of my first times seeing LHDC instead of LDAC, but it's yet another option to throw into the mix. Benefit here is it strikes a balance between transmitting more data and also having lower latency. When you're listening to music, it shouldn't lag quite as much when it comes to syncing between the headphones and your phone. Now, the concept here also kind of reminds me of the PLAUD AI Note as well as the PLAUD Note Pen, which have become quite popular over the past year or so as well, and they're basically a smarter next-gen digital voice recorder that also, again, syncs things over to your phone later on. Plus, with their companion application, you're able to leverage a large language model similar to ChatGPT, and it's able to parse through your notes into text and even summarize different bullet points, mind maps using the recordings that you've captured on the built-in storage. So honestly, the RecDot reminds me a lot of that concept, except now they're fused into wireless buds, which actually might be more practical because now it kills two birds with one stone. You're able to use it as a voice recorder, you can use it to listen to music, and it has that similar functionality inside of the companion app, making them a little bit more of a versatile hybrid. Now, by the way, they also have a couple of other optional accessories, including this one called the Note Kit. It's not included in the default bundle that we have here, but interestingly, that one then syncs over the recordings onto a computer using a thumbstick style USB port. So it's plug and play, and you're able to offload those onto a desktop interface if you prefer, instead of being mobile only on the RecDot using Bluetooth. So there's that desktop support if you need it using this optional separate accessory. Otherwise, it comes in two colors, either a more discreet black or a silver that we have here, a little bit more shiny looking, and they even have a open style air conduction or bone conduction style pair of headphones as well that you can pick between if you want more of that ambient awareness as you are listening to music and recording, compared to the RecDot, which is a more conventional, tighter seal that also offers active noise cancellation versus the open style headphones that might be more suited for sports as well. And then last but not least, they also have a more light version of the RecDot, which is going to be called the Nano Plus. It works in essentially the same way. The dimensions of the Nano Plus are a little bit more compact. It's also $50 cheaper. This one's selling for around $200 versus the RecDot is around $250. So again, these aren't going to be the most budget wireless buds that we've seen, but considering that they're kind of a 2-in-1 voice recorder / high-end, high-res audio certified wireless headphones, it is more designed for business professionals and sitting as an alternative to more premium buds like Apple's AirPods, for example, but still features the built-in storage for recording memos. However, it doesn't have high-res wireless certification, so it's missing the LHDC codec. It's only using the standard Bluetooth SBC and AAC. So if you're more of an audiophile, then it might be worth spending a little more for the RecDots instead. Furthermore, the RecDots claim to cancel up to 98% of noise with the adaptive active noise cancellation compared to 95% on the Nano Plus. So the ANC should be just a little bit stronger on these ones as well. So that's the two areas where you're spending a little bit more on. Otherwise, the aforementioned companion app that can generate different summaries, as well as, again, control EQ profiles for the headphones themselves, is available for both iOS and Android devices. Now, something I will point out is certain flagship-grade smartphones do seem to have smarter transcription capabilities built in, like some of the Google Pixel phones have an excellent voice-to-text Recorder app. So if you have a Google Pixel phone, then maybe some of the functionality is going to get a little duplicated here. However, if you're using smartphones from another manufacturer or a mid-range phone, you won't necessarily find as robust of a AI-based recorder app built into the device. And that's where picking up an accessory like this can supplement that and add the feature in. By the way, aside from recording memos and notes, you can also record phone calls in addition to use it for video transcription capabilities as well on a tablet, for example, allowing you to see the translations in real time. The microphone can pick up audio from over 7 meters away. Here's also a list of some of the supported languages currently, which may further grow in the future. We can see that being displayed over here. You can switch between, again, 2 different languages. So for example, during a meeting, if someone is speaking in French or Spanish, you can see the translated English results as well. The buds themselves can last continuously for around 9 hours of listening and recording before you have to recharge them again. But again, you are able to pop it onto a Qi charging pad, and you can see it begins to charge automatically down below here as well. As for drivers or the speakers inside, they're 11mm titanium coated and also having a kind of Japanese copper coil component as well. In fact, the microphones can even be used as voice controls, which are always on. No wake-up prompts are needed. You can just speak and it will do the command. For example, playing a next song, skipping tracks, changing the volume just by saying that key phrase. Last but not least, they're going to be IP55 for sweat and water resistance, so you can use it in the rain and they should still survive. They are otherwise using Bluetooth 5.2, and the buds themselves weigh around 4.9 grams, so they're relatively lightweight. Now, inside of the packaging here, we just have some of those aforementioned features reiterated, including translation capability, recording, FlashRecord using the built-in storage. There's dual connectivity as well, so you can pair to both a computer and a phone simultaneously. And on the inside, we have, of course, the headphones themselves. There's a more detailed user guide. There is a orange braided USB Type-C charging cable, also with their logo on it, showing some good attention to detail. And then last but not least, some spare silicone tips in large, small, and extra small to get a more snug fit. By the way, these tips also have kind of an interesting mesh on the inside layer as well, making them a little easier to clean and preventing any earwax from collecting. And now a closer look at the design of these buds. I think it has a pretty sleek and attractive overall look. It's a matte plastic build, doesn't seem to attract too much fingerprints. The size here is also quite compact, easy enough to slide into pockets when you are on the go. Notification light there on the front, and also the slider mechanism feels pretty tight and easy to access. By the way, the left and right sides for the buds, this little icon is also backlit with LEDs, which are a little bit more obvious in a darker space or environment. So there's some nice subtle details going on, with the shiny chrome accent continuing on the inside as well. It definitely looks rather pretty. Magnets here lock the headphones into place pretty securely as well. And when we remove the buds, we can indeed confirm that they have a IR or infrared light sensor here on the back, which can detect when the buds are being worn or removed to automatically play and pause the music. As for the buds themselves, what's also interesting is they have a touch control located on the side of the stem. So when you're pressing down, it doesn't apply as much pressure. Quite thoughtful. Zooming into the design, there's actually a little bit more going on than what first meets the eye, and that's because this chrome mirror-like finish also has kind of an interesting pattern, but you can kind of see it reflecting here on certain angles. There's kind of an interesting texture behind it, and aside from it looking quite shiny, you can also see some other small detail work even on the touch-sensitive area of these little stripes running across. You'll otherwise find access to 2 microphones here on the very top, and then one on the bottom of the stem pointing a little closer to the mouth. And here's also what the buds looks like when we remove one of the silicone tips that reveals the mesh on the inside. And to begin recording a flash memo on the built-in storage, we just have to press on that oversized record key. We'll click on that once. You'll see the green light then start to turn on, and we can now begin to talk, and it's going to be recording continuously. You can also see the L icon here flashing, which means that it's currently saving onto the left buds' built-in memory. There's around a 2-hour capacity here, and then 2 more hours on the right side. And when we are satisfied, we'll click on the key here once more to stop the recording. And now over to the VM Companion app. Once Bluetooth and location services are turned on, you'll be able to see the battery percentage remaining on the left, right side, as well as the battery case. From here, we can jump into the Records tab, and this is where we can find if there's any recordings saved onto the built-in storage of the buds. So for example, right now, there's actually 4 recordings that it's captured, and we can click to download and sync them over from the built-in storage of the buds over to the phone app here. Really just taking a split moment there to finish once it begins to download, as you can tell there, so pretty fast. We have to pop the buds though back into the case when we are downloading them over to the phone, and then we are going to be done. Now over on the phone tab, we should see all the live recordings that has been completed. the recording continuously, you can also see the L icon here flashing, which means that it's currently saving onto the left buds' built-in memory again. So overall, again, the clarity of the recordings and the mic is indeed working really well. Definitely one of the higher quality mics I've heard out of a pair of wireless buds. Doesn't sound too robotic either, despite canceling out some of the background sounds. You can also click to transcribe. Converting the audio recording into a text format, you can choose the language to make it a little bit easier. It takes about 1 minute though for the process there to generate there in the background. You see a progress bar. Looking something like this. It's not bad. It's even parsed out different sentences with punctuation here as well, without too much spelling errors either. So accuracy seems quite good, and they claim that it's around 95% accurate, comparable to some AI translators that we've seen previously as well, including even the, again, L icon there has been referenced correctly too, including numbers, actually doing a pretty solid job overall. You're also able to scrub back and forth between different parts of the timeline and see maybe sections which are quiet for you to skip past them, including the ability for you to play back at different speeds, slower or faster, including a smart playback mode, which will automatically skip sections of pauses where there's nothing going on, improving on the efficiency of the recording as well. Plus, as the recording is playing back, you can also see the relevant section being displayed here as well in terms of the dialogue as it's being spoken out loud. So not bad. Under additional settings here, you're able to then share these notes by exporting them as a plain text or emailing this particular copy. And you can also copy the text here as well, again, working without too many issues. The export tab also allows you to save a copy of the audio file for saving and sharing as well. And then the font size here can also be changed in terms of larger versus smaller. Some basic accessibility functions can be played with. For longer transcripts, you're also able to search for specific keywords to find a relevant section more quickly, in addition to having the translate functionality. So again, similar to Google Translate, now it's able to convert this into a secondary language. For example, let's choose Spanish here. And then after a moment or so, we're able to see the English and also the Spanish down below. And then on the very top, we can also click on this icon here, the globe, to generate some additional AI insights. So aside from the transcription, you can summarize key takeaways, insights, and even generate a to-do list if relevant. So for example, let's actually try this out. This will once again require about a minute or so for it to then parse through. So here's one more example. If we see it generating there in real time, putting it into different sections. So this was an offline recording test and another sample that we recorded a little earlier, including some of my remarks about the performance and also the voice quality test, some of the quotes it's pulled out as well. So not bad in terms of making it maybe a little easier to reference longer notes. Also, if you're recording memos of things you want to purchase at a grocery store so you don't forget, it might be a little easier to use this method as well, and then you're able to check off these boxes once you have completed those tasks from the recordings. We're able to long hold and click on the edit key there to maybe type in additional details, as well as clarify, make any corrections if needed. And by the way, the to-do list and summary format can also be exported, shared by email. So the recording, transcription, and summarization part actually works surprisingly pretty well using this part of the app. With that being said, there are two caveats. The first being similar to the PLAUD note, if you are recording for really long durations, keep in mind that there is still a kind of tiered membership to it. Now, if you're on the free version, you can record and transcribe up to 10 hours per month, which I think generally should be sufficient if you're just making quick meetings, things like that. However, if you're going over 10 hours of recording that you want it to parse and summarize insights from, there's going to be a pro membership that you can consider instead. And similar to other tools, like if you were using Gemini or ChatGPT directly, you want to access some of those pro features. It is a similar concept here. This quota still seems reasonable enough. And also keep in mind that if you're just using it to record audio as well as memos, it doesn't use up any of your quota. It's only when you start to convert it using the AI as that secondary step, again, generating the summaries, transcriptions, as well as to-do lists, that it starts to count as part of the quota. And you can see how much you've used on the side as well. So the duration there gets added up. And then the second caveat that I will say is describing the sensation of what it feels like when you are wearing the buds and then speaking. It is a little bit interesting because these are, again, fully closed off buds with active noise cancellation, blocking off all of the external sounds. So when you are speaking out loud, it actually feels like you are not able to completely hear fully what you are saying yourself, just because the active noise cancellation ANC is so effective, which is why I feel like it might be a little more comfortable using the open style pair of headphones, that other variant they sell as well, if you are trying to also hear yourself while talking simultaneously. Under this first page, we can see if there's any firmware updates available and also check what devices are currently paired to the headphones. It does support dual connectivity. And then under balance, this is where you can find additional EQ profiles. Right now, it is going to be a default one, already sounding quite good. If you're playing different genres of music like pop, bass boosted, treble, electronic, dance, R&B, you can further tweak around with these settings yourself. In fact, there's another custom EQ slider that you can generate here as well, although there isn't a hearing test mode which does this automatically, like some of the other premium buds we've seen previously, but not bad. In fact, there's even going to be a podcast mode as well as a PUBG mode for gaming in terms of the sound EQ tuning that you can find here. Last but not least, underneath, we also find a high quality audio mode. So turning this on will activate the LHDC audio codec that we talked about earlier. But if you're just watching maybe a YouTube video doing something casual, you can just turn that off to improve on power efficiency. Now, this tab here also lets us turn on the active noise cancellation. You can also tap on it again to turn into the audio transparency mode, which is now using the microphones to kind of amplify the sound around you. This actually might be a good mode to trigger. In fact, if you are constantly recording voice memos, you want to still hear yourself while talking, this feels a little bit more natural. Or if you're trying to cross the street or listen to music while having a conversation, you can still hear more clearly with the ambient transparency mode activated. Finally, under more here, you're also able to activate some of the presets, including the gaming mode, PUBG, EQ profile, as well as a Find My Buds functionality that can play back a chime loudly on the left and right sides. Moving into the Discover tab, this is where we can find some white noise sound effects for relaxation and falling asleep. You can also initialize a countdown timer for it to last X minutes before the soundtrack stops. You can reference those soundscapes accordingly using this particular section. Now finally, the last tab under Advanced Settings is where you can also check on your current plan usage. So right now we've used again 3 minutes for our current month, also telling us when the quota will reset. So it will actually count a month based on when you started using it dynamically instead of a calendar month. So for example, if I started using these on the 24th, it will then reset on the 24th of the next month. And then further sliding down, interestingly enough, under noise control, we're able to change the intensity manually from here. So if you want to turn the ANC to be higher, lower, middle, as well as for audio transparency, you want everything to be let in or only for voices to be let in, that can be controlled in a more granular way. There's also a tab here for the voice control in terms of some of the, again, auto on wake words. So when you're saying any of these words, you also hear a chime on the buds to give you confirmation that's been properly detected, and actually works pretty well. Also, the wearing detection sensor you can turn on and off, in addition to allowing you to switch into other profiles using that sensor as well, like automatically answering a call when it's incoming when you pop them in. Alternatively, if you're only wearing one bud, it can recognize that and turn on the audio transparency mode automatically, so on and so forth. There's even a fit test as well that tells you if you're wearing the correct size of the silicone tips to get a snug enough fit to block out sound and for optimal sound quality, playing back a series of sounds and then using the microphones to detect if there's any sound leakage to tell you if you're wearing the correct size tips. Do you want location data to also be captured with the recording? So geotagging, maybe if you were in a certain city, locale when you were recording at the time, and under FlashRecord settings, you're able to trigger certain commands like long holding on the buds for a couple of seconds to begin recording. When you are wearing the buds, you can turn these functions on or off, in addition to triggering a real-time transcription mode and also the language that you want to set it at. So in fact, giving this a quick test, we're going to begin a recording here by long pressing for a couple of seconds, and going back onto this main home screen, you can see it tells us that the right side bud is now storing a recording continuously. In fact, here's another test of that as we are speaking here in real time, and after a split second, you can see the actual transcription pop up on screen. So this is pretty convenient because you don't have to actually stop it and then wait for an extra minute for things to process. If you want to immediately see what's going on, you'll be able to generate the text here on screen using the real-time transcription. That being said, there are going to be a couple of maybe small punctuation errors that it tries to autocorrect after a split second later, but overall the main sentiment is still captured. It's pretty fast, surprisingly, even in this particular mode. So you do have a couple of ways of recording content. For example, in the app here, you can just tap on this red key if you want to separate it into a live recording, a note that you want to then transcribe later on, or a in-call recording can all be chosen. Alternatively, again, you're able to use the touch control here and press on it for about 2 seconds until you hear a beep, and that will also start a recording. Alternatively, you can again have the buds inside of the battery case and then click on the record key from here as well. So it's pretty easy to just seamlessly get to recording content at a moment's notice, which is pretty helpful, again, if you are a business professional, student, or a creative trying to capture those moments. By the way, when you close out of the app here, if it's running in the background, there's also going to be a pop-up here that you can tap to also check on if you're beginning to record or not. In fact, you can also add an optional widget onto your home screen created by them as well when the app is installed, giving you some basic status regarding the buds if needed. With that being said, one functionality that's interestingly missing in the companion app at this point in time is the ability for you to reprogram what the touch controls will correspond to. So it seems like these aren't remappable at this point in time, but luckily you can still activate everything you would want, including volume, just by swiping on this touchpad section up and down to lower or raise the volume. Alternatively, you can use, again, the voice control method. And now moving into audio quality performance, thankfully, these also sounded very clean in terms of there was very little hints of any distortion or static in the background, didn't encounter any issues in terms of connectivity, and pairing felt pretty seamless, and the actual sound quality was quite nuanced as well, which is kind of expected considering they are using more premium components, coupled especially with that high-res wireless certification mode. If activated, you get plenty of detail and nuances. There is sufficient depth to the sound as well, that it doesn't sound too thin or tinny, even at higher volume levels. Similarly, if you're listening to a drum beat within pop music and EDM tracks, it still sounds pretty satisfying. For smaller wireless buds, at the very least, I felt like it had enough impact for them to be enjoyable. And then similarly, when it came to vocals and instrumentals with trebles, higher end frequencies, again, not sounding too shrill either, still having a pretty nice rounded sound overall, thankfully making them enjoyable for music listening as well. In fact, I would say it's on par with other premium wireless buds we've tested previously from brands like Soundcore by Anker, sufficient volume for them to get plenty loud, a very snug and comfortable fit for them to sound satisfying and pretty excellent from an audio point of view. Last but not least, the active noise cancellation was indeed very effective, one of the strongest that we've tested out of a pair of wireless buds. Especially when cranked onto high, you're able to drown out most engine sounds, fan noises from an office. If you're traveling on a plane or car, most of that just goes away. It doesn't really tamper with the audio profile either, so the sound itself, in terms of the equalizer, the balance of highs and lows, are still going to be retained regardless of if you have ANC on or off, giving you a more peaceful listening experience. That is more or less it as far as our hands-on review of these Viaim RecDot true wireless buds. Definitely one of the most unique wireless headphones that we've seen. It's really a voice recorder plus headphones 2-in-1 concept. And yeah, maybe that's not for everyone, but if you are eyeing products like the PLAUD Note, other voice recorders, this is kind of an interesting 2-in-1 hybrid that I think actually makes sense. Putting it into a format which is accessible always with you when you are traveling around, and at the same time, again, the built-in storage on the buds means you can record even when disconnected from the phone app, as well as having all the little touches like the proximity wearing sensor, having wireless charging support. There's very little that is missing here, giving you essentially a kitchen sink package when it comes to all of the flagship grade features we've seen on a pair of wireless buds. So this is pretty cool, I have to say. If you're interested, you can check out more details in the links down below, but for now, that's been our video. Thanks for watching here at OS Reviews. These have been, again, the unique Viaim RecDots recording true wireless buds.